Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the Upper Tier Podcast. If you could head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button and drop a like on the video. We didn't have a show this week on Thursday. I was caught up doing a few things, so we couldn't do a show, but wanted to jump on and do some Premier League predictions for the weekend because we missed out on the show. And there's a lot of matches to this weekend with plenty of jeopardy going into an international break. So let us know your predictions in the comments. Who are you putting a little bit of money on if you're having a wager or a gamble? Who are you leaning towards? Who are the picks and all that kind of stuff? But we'll go down through the matches and I'll give you my picks and try and tease out some score lines and stuff like that as well, as always. But yeah, absolutely a huge weekend. Just lots of pop-ups coming up there. But yeah, a huge weekend in the Premier League, especially heading off into an international break. How will the landscape look going into this international break? So we start off, and it's great today. You have a game at 12:30, and we're going all the way through till 10 o'clock tonight. Chelsea kicking off against Wolves in the late game at 8 o'clock. And I just don't know why they don't do this on a Sunday as well. Give us a 12:30 game, give us a 2 o'clock games, give us a 4:30 game, and give us even a 6 or an 8 o'clock game or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And it's strange that they don't do it. So many good fixtures on Sunday as well. Shame that they get lost in the mix. But we'll start off today, 12:30, Tottenham Hotspur versus Man United. Massive game for both teams. Man United away record not great at the moment. Tottenham home record absolutely abysmal. But Tottenham are coming in with a little bit more uplift from last weekend. Chelsea absolutely destroyed them last weekend. They were so poor, Tottenham at home. Shocking, really, you know what I mean? But for Man United, this is a big one as well. They've gone now without beating Tottenham. If they go 5, they will surpass a record that's been in place since 1920. But United so far this season have been fixing up, if you like, on some of these iffy fixtures, if you like, beating Brighton, obviously beating my own Liverpool as well at Anfield after nearly a decade. So they have been turning these things around. Can they turn this around today? Coming in off the back of an indifferent performance, I would say, against Nottingham Forest. I know based on the 2 wins and the 3 wins or whatever it is and the draw, I think they're satisfied at it. But I think if those wins hadn't happened, I think the draw away at Nottingham Forest would have disappointed people, really. But what way do we see this going, people? I think it's going to play out a 2-2 draw. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. It's going to be an interesting dynamic. Obviously, United starting to find their feet, especially up front. Reasonable in defence. And then you look at Spurs. Spurs front line is just shady as hell, isn't it? Richarlison is just... That guy is just getting paid appearance money at this stage. That guy is pretending to be a footballer at this stage. Really poor. Brennan Johnson again trying to find his feet from the Forest days and stuff like that. He hasn't looked anything like the Forest Brennan Johnson that we knew and loved and lauded on. And it's just been a real struggle for them. Xavi Simons has come in, hasn't looked anything special. Matthias Tell, kind of a bit part. Kudus has been huge for them and they've heavily relied on Kudus. But can they continue to rely on him? I'm not sure. There's talk about him maybe not being available today and stuff, injury and stuff like that. So if he's not available, that would heavily weight in Man United side. But I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw and move on into the 3 o'clocks. There's 2 of them. So Everton versus Fulham. Marco Silva going back to his old club, but a different ground, of course. Everton indifferent, I would say, as well, under Moyes. He had stabilised them a little bit and they were doing pretty good, but has come off in recent times. I think Fulham might just edge this 2-1. I just think Fulham have a bit more about them. But again, Fulham is one of those teams very like Spurs as well. You're not too sure which Fulham you're going to get. You can get the unbelievable Fulham, or you can get the Fulham that sometimes just doesn't show up for whatever reason. But I think today they'll show up against Everton. I think Marco Silva will have them primed for that. Going for a Fulham 2-1 type win. West Ham versus Burnley. This is another one of those relegation 6-pointers, we call it. Burnley showing little shades and stuff like that Scotty Parker's trying to find a way and stuff like that and all, but again, always going to be a struggle and stuff like that. West Ham, big win last weekend and stuff like that, and really needed as well. They were in dire straits. Can Nuno find the formula today to beat Burnley, or will it be a struggle? I think West Ham are going to win this 2-1. I think, and another tight one. Then the half-5 one, all eyes will be on this. Sunderland, the Black Cats, Sunderland till I die versus Arsenal. How do we see this going? On paper, looking at form and stuff like that, Sunderland have been absolutely outstanding this season. Granit Xhaka pulling the strings in there. Ex-Arsenal boy as well. He'll want to perform today. Arsenal going into this, not coughing up chances, not coughing up goals, clean sheets galore, on an absolute tear in every competition they're in. Can't really put a foot wrong at the moment. Defence is incredible. But could a nasty trip up to Sunderland at 5:30 on a Saturday evening? You know, sometimes when we look at teams and we look at teams that are on a really, really good run and we laud over them and stuff like that, and there's no doubt Arsenal have been exceptional this season. But sometimes they drop points or they get bad results where you least expect it. And this could be one of those games where you least expect it. I'm not going to really predict this one. I'm kind of thinking like it could be a draw, but then again it could be an Arsenal easy day and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see how the first 20 minutes to half an hour goes at this. You know, the crowd will be definitely up for it. Stadium of Light, absolutely fabulous. Be interesting to see how Arsenal approach this and what way it goes and stuff like that. They are missing key players up front. Will those key players missing come back to haunt them a little bit? Now listen, there's goals all over the team. We know Gabriel, we know Declan Rice, Eze. Literally every single player on the pitch has an influence in terms of goal scoring this season. We've seen goals from Mendy, we've seen goals from Calafiori, we've seen Yuri and Timber. You know, the goals come from everywhere really. So will they be exposed by not having those key players up front? We shall see. But let us know your thoughts on this. Boy, I would love a draw. Can't see anything other than an Arsenal win, but that's off to Sunderland. They've been absolutely fabulous. And then the 8 o'clock game, again a game that you would expect Chelsea to be comfortable in and stuff like that and run out winners against Wolves. Wolves really, really struggling. Tough task for them at the moment. We've seen Robbie Keane linked with the job at Wolves now as well. Be interesting to see if he went back to his old team, how interesting that would be. But Chelsea versus Wolves is your 8 o'clock game. I expect Chelsea to win this. They've been a little bit indifferent coming off a poor result against Squarebag in the midweek in the Champions League and stuff like that, but they'll want to fix up. Wolves this season have really been, I won't say the whipping boys. If you look at the points and you just looked at the table, you would think they've been the whipping boys of the league. But they have been a little bit unlucky with results and stuff like that. They've had an opportunity to gain draws and gain points and stuff like that, and they've just coughed up stuff. They've just at times ran out of gas in the last 20 minutes of games and stuff like that and all. Or they've given teams such a head start that they just couldn't catch up enough and stuff like that, you know. There is a cohort of talent there. There is the ability to do better. But Wolves to me at the moment feel like a wounded animal that's just being preyed upon and they just don't have the answers, you know. So I think Chelsea win here 3-1. Let's go into Sunday now, and as I said, Sunday really disappoints me because there's some really good matches there. All good matches actually when you look at them, really very interesting, but it's a pity they don't do the 12:30, 2 o'clock, 4:30, maybe 6:30 or something like that on a Sunday and give us another full day of it, you know. It's a pity. But we kick it off anyway. We'll go through the 2 o'clocks. Aston Villa versus Bournemouth. Aston Villa coming in after a good win midweek in the Champions League against Maccabi Tel Aviv. Not the Champions League, the Europa. Against Maccabi Tel Aviv. Malin with one of the goals there. I think one was a penalty as well, so good to see Malin scoring again. But they're coming up against Bournemouth here. Bournemouth to be licking their wounds from last week against Man City. Not that they expect to beat Man City, but they did put up a good showing there. Man City went ahead. Erling Haaland, absolute monster. But Bournemouth came back into the game and then they weakened greatly, and then when it got to 3-1 they were kind of out of the game. But did put on a reasonable showing, tailed off towards the end, and like you'd expect that against City at the Etihad, so powerful with Erling Haaland. But Aston Villa, trip to Aston Villa now. Tough enough trip for them, but Aston Villa this season have kind of struggled a little bit. You've seen shades of them being really, really good. They came in with real good form and stuff like that against Liverpool last weekend, but they looked really weak against Liverpool last weekend. So this will be an interesting matchup. Again, I think I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw here going into the international break. Bournemouth will be very powerful there with Semenyo and the boys they have up front and stuff like that. Aston Villa would look to sign off the international break with a home win. but I think it'll be a 2-2 draw. I think there'll be goals in this. Brentford versus Newcastle. Again, this is an indifferent one, really, isn't it, as well? Like, Brentford at times have showed up and looked really good under Keith Andrews this season, and then at times they look very ordinary, you know. Newcastle the same, in different form under Eddie Howe. At times can look really, really well in the way that they play, but at times they can just look very ordinary. But they get as far as now. They got a good win during the week as well in the Champions League and stuff like that, so they'll be happy with that. So going to go for a Newcastle 2-1 away win here. But Keith Andrews will have the guys marshalled and coached for this game. This will be one of their big games of the season, Newcastle, of course. But let's see how this plays out. But I think Newcastle might just edge this 2-1. Crystal Palace versus Brighton. I would argue probably one of the games of the weekend. Down at Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace back on home ground. Brighton on their travels have been a little bit indifferent. I thought the game against United was interesting. They've had some kind of Jekyll and Hyde kind of momentum going on and stuff like that. Palace, you know what you're going to get with Palace. You're going to get generally a solid performance. I think there's only the wheels have come off a little bit there, where they went through a little bit of a rut, especially after beating us. Again with this one, I think this could be a 2-2 draw as well. I think there'll be goals in this as well. Then we move on to the other 2 o'clock. Too many 2 o'clocks here. Nottingham Forest versus Leeds. This is again a potential relegation 6-pointer. Paul spoke to me about this the other day. Leeds will be very disappointed after the other night. They just haven't done enough really to progress it, really, when you look at what they've done in the market and stuff like that, and they will have to go into the window in January to fix up, otherwise they're going to find themselves in a real ding-dong battle in that relegation area. Nottingham Forest under Sean Dyche will be very, very structured again. I think Forest are going to pick up the win here 2-1. I think they're at home. I think Sean Dyche, I think he's coming off the back of that draw against United last week, which would stabilise things and give a little bit of confidence back in there. I think Dyche this week, he might be a little bit more progressive, not as pragmatic, but certainly he'll have them structured in a way that they'll be very, very strong. So I think Forest might run out here 2-1 winners. And then the big game, the Super Sunday one, Man City versus Liverpool. Again, this is I believe a kind of a title eliminator nearly, you know, because if you expect Arsenal to go on and win, against Sunderland and make that gap 10 points and 9 points respectively, then a draw here is no good to either team, and I think either team will have to try and go for the win here to stay in around this title race, or Arsenal's going to get away from them very, very quick. So we'll see how that plays out. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. I'd love Liverpool to win 2-1 or something like that and close that gap on Arsenal if Sunderland can get a draw. Probably don't see it happening, but it's going to be a really, really tough game, and we'll know before this game kicks off, of course, what's happened in the Arsenal game and stuff from this evening, you know. So a lot of pressure could be on this game, but let's see how it plays out. Slot versus Pep, going to be some interesting dynamic there. What way do we fill in those half spaces? How do we control that space sometimes between midfield and defence? You've seen the preview, it's up on the channel and stuff like that. Go check it out as well, and thanks for supporting it, folks. Good views on that. But yeah, I think it's going to play either a 2-2 or I would hope a 2-1 to Liverpool. But again, let us know your predictions in the comments. That's your quick fire predictions for the Premier League this weekend. Obviously, as I said, we didn't do the Thursday show, so if you could like and subscribe and hit that bell notification button. Lots of shows coming up at the moment, lots of content going out. All the panel from Pro Wrestling, they're all going to be doing their own individual shows now, so you'll be getting tons and tons of content coming at you each week. So please do support the channel. We'll talk to you again real soon, and best of luck with your predictions this weekend if you're doing fantasy football or having a flutter. Cheers.